There's another form called a CSS profile, right? So the FAFSA is filled out for every school out there. Those 3,000 schools, every school takes it. But the CSS profile, about 300 schools take it. It's typically somewhat the more competitive schools, but not always. And this CSS profile is much more in-depth, asks for a lot more information. So as an example, when you fill out the FAFSA, you do not include your primary home equity. Right? You do not include your primary home equity. You do not include retirement savings. Very important to know that. So when they ask for investments, it's not your retirement savings they're looking at. They're just looking at your non-retirement savings. But the CSS profile asks for all that and more. Okay, it's a very in-depth form. And what also happens is, even if you're separated or divorced, they're going to ask for both parents' financial information. So there's no loophole in that one. With the FAFSA there is, but not with the CSS profile. So it's also important to know the schools that your son or daughter you're applying to, what they take. Do they require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile, or just the FAFSA? Okay, so, and plus the CSS profile, depending on if your child is applying early action or early decision, that may be due much earlier on. I know that some of them are due as early as November 1st. And again, that's a priority deadline. If you miss it, you may be missing out on money. As the CSS profile is just for institutional aid. Okay, so there's federal aid, and there's institutional aid. So the CSS profile is just for the college to decide how much money they're going to give themselves, not for the federal government, right? And by the way, every school looks at those numbers a little differently. So although with the FAFSA, your EFC is going to be the same no matter what. When you get it, as soon as you submit the FAFSA, out comes your EFC. You'll see it. But with the CSS profile, you never really know what that EFC is. It's become a little bit more secretive. We used to know the calculation. I estimated it, and it typically isn't that far off. But every school looks at it differently. Every school might say, one school may say, you know what, I'm looking at your retirement assets, because on the CSS profile, you do need to give your retirement assets. And they're going to count that a little bit more than another school that may not. So the EFC may really vary by school when it comes to the CSS profile.